If you scroll down to the bottom of your view editor, you'll see the settings meta box here. And as you can see, there are a bunch of tabs here on the left. So the settings are split into these different sections. We're going to go through each one of them and get an overview of all the different options and the different settings that you might want to configure. Okay, so starting here on the View Settings tab, the first option is to enable a lightbox for images. So if you enable that option, images will load in a lightbox if the user clicks on them. That's quite nice if your directory is image heavy. The next option, show only approved entries. If you check this option, you'll have to approve entries before they can be displayed in your directory. So for now, we're just going to leave that and move on to the multiple entries tab. So here you can set the number of entries per page. The default value is 25, but you can change that here. You have the option to hide view data until a search is performed. And you can of course hide empty fields, which is enabled by default. And then finally, you can update the messages that are shown when no results are found in the directory. So when a user performs a search and no results are found, you can change the message that shows up. Okay, so moving on to the single entry settings. Here you can change the title of the single entry page, which is quite nice. So for example, if we wanted to make the single entry the title of the actual business, we could just use a Gravity Forms merge tag here by clicking on this button and just selecting the business name. All right, and then we can also change the backlink label. So when you go to the single entry page, there's a link that goes back to the multiple entries page, and it just says go back. But if you want to change that text, you can do that here. Let's move on to the edit entry settings. So we went through these settings in the previous section, but it's just worth going over user edit again. So if you enable this option, it means that logged in users will be able to edit entries that they create. This is helpful if you're running a directory and you want directory members to be able to update their details. Unapprove entries after edit. So if you enable that option, you'll have to go ahead and reapprove an entry after it's been edited. Okay, so redirect after editing. You can see there are a few options here. So when a user finishes updating their details, you can decide where the user gets redirected to. So either they will stay on the edit entry page, they can get redirected to the single entry page, the multiple entries, or you can redirect them to a custom URL. So if you select this option, you'll see a new input box opens up here, and here you can type in a new custom URL. Okay, so the delete entry settings. Allow user delete. So if you enable this option, users will be able to delete entries that they create. So by default, this is not enabled. But if you want your directory members to be able to remove their listings, then you can enable this. And you can also redirect them after deleting. Okay, so the filter and sort tab is one of the most important. So there are quite a few settings here you might want to configure. First up is sort by field. So if you want to sort your entries in your directory by a specific field, you can choose a field here. We'll sort ours by the business name. And of course you can choose the sort direction. So that'll be alphabetical order or reverse alphabetical order depending on the option that you select. Either ascending or descending, or you can just sort by a random order. Okay, next you can sort by a secondary field as well. So for example, the date created. And then finally, you can filter entries by date. So this is helpful if you only want to show entries created within a certain time frame. So if you click in here, You can see there's a date picker that shows up and you can select a date manually, or you can use relative dates. So for example, minus 2 months, that'll be 2 months ago. And here we can select today. So this will ensure that only entries created within the last 2 months are displayed in our directory. Alright, so finally heading over to the Permissions tab. Here you can prevent direct access to the view. So this is helpful if you're planning to embed your view on a page or post and you don't want users to access it directly. So to give you an idea of what I mean, if we just scroll up, you can see that the view itself has a link here, a permalink. This is the direct link to the view. If you want to disable access directly and you only want users to be able to access the view on the page where it's embedded, then you would enable this option here. Okay, so the next option is allow user duplicate. So enabling this will allow users to duplicate entries that they've created. And then finally at the bottom we have allow export. So if you enable this, users will be able to export data from the directory as either a CSV or a TSV file. So the way that this works is that you add a /CSV or /TSV to the end of the view URL, and it will download the entries as a CSV or TSV file to your computer. So if you enable this option, you can see another option shows up here called Show All in File. So if you check that, it means that the output file that's exported will contain all of the entries, not just the ones displayed on the page. Okay, so feel free to take a look around the view settings. If you come across an option that you're not quite sure what it does, you can just click on this question mark icon here. And as you can see, it actually loads a article from our documentation website, giving you a lot more detail about what the option is and how it all works.